We're live. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
We went live a couple of minutes early. We are scheduled to go live at 8 p.m. Central Time, 9 p.m. Eastern. Got me and Kelly aboard today, and I do want to make mention before we get started that our last episode is the most liked episode on the channel,
Yay.
and our fifth most watched in terms of viewed episode on the channel. The top four are our first four episodes of the show. So
Hi, yay. It's always YouTube on YouTube Make My Mayday is queen, but Gargoyles I know trumps us every time.
Oh dude, the numbers are pretty substantial on Gargoyles.
Of course.
It's definitely also our biggest driver of our Patreon page.
That's because they play the game. I said Mayday should not be paywalled.
Yeah, so I did announce this on Patreon. I think I don't know if I've mentioned this on Spidey Experience yet in length, but the video edition of Voices will be on patreon.com/Spidey Network. The audio edition will still be coming out as normal, but they won't be getting audio edition early like they used to. So we're kind of switching that out to kind of give them something that's definitely exclusive. So got some big announcements that were made on today's episode. There's going to be a gathering of the Gargoyles in 2024 to celebrate the 30th anniversary, which is the first time that's happened in probably 10 years, I think.
But also wait, 30th?
I know, 1994, 2024.
I mean, in fairness, I was young. I was a young kid. I do, however, remember, because one of the first big things on the internet was the Save Gargoyles from Eisner's set rule of episodes for cartoon shows.
Oh, you mean the 75 episodes that they did?
Yeah, so that was a whole, but you know that, right? That was a whole thing where Eisner said that kids shows, because it wasn't just cartoons, but kids shows should not exceed that amount of episodes, which in hindsight, I understand the logic. I just think that the rule is not a hard rule, obviously. You wouldn't have One Piece or Pokemon or any anime if that was the case.
Yeah.
But I do get it in terms of trying to keep a story contained within that amount of time overall is kind of it's a decent goal to have.
Yeah. Well, the crazy thing is that season 1 is only 13 episodes long, but then season 2 is 52.
Welcome to Disney. Welcome to Disney Animation. Because now that's not the case. Now it's always 13, but this was before. Long before
syndication.
Stuff like that.
Syndication, look it up, kids. At one time, the most popular show in the world was Hercules, the legendary journey.
Hey, that is a great cartoon show. I will fight to the death. There was the best webpage ever that was run by it was just a girl. I mean, obviously I think she was an older woman, but just run by her, and it technically was a fancy GeoCities, but had the best stuff.
Oh, of course. Fancy GeoCities, that's the origins of Spidey Dude. Come on now. So we didn't use
origin of everybody's. Yeah. Oh, it's fine. I was making jokes about pro boards. I was someone has found my back, because now people role play on now they even role play on TikTok, which is crazy. But where they were role playing stuff. I used to do it on pro boards, mostly X-Men. You're not finding that.
Spider Girl is definitely trying to get that off the ground too. So.
Yeah. I don't know what to say about that. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's more of I remembered that time. I remember when that was fun.
Oh.
I don't have time for it now anymore, because you got to actually think and plot and.
Oh, dude, you're talking to the guy that literally wrote fan fiction for Crawl Space about the Crawl Space message board, not even about Spider-Man. So there's that.
Yeah, that sounds dirty.
It was not. It's not.
Sure. Sure.
All right, so we're gonna get started with the episode.
Yes.
So hopefully you guys like it, and we'll go from there. So, all right, without further ado. All right, it's the final episode of the Amazing Spider-Girl era. Officially, we are entering into a different phase for the series. Until the final 4 issues of the Spectacular Spider-Girl, these would be the final issues of a regular title starring our girl Mayday in her own series. It's truly the end of an era, and we embark on it next here on the Spidey Dude Radio Network. I'm Zach Joyner. Hello, everybody. I wanted to first tell everyone about our other great shows here on the Spidey Dude Radio Network. We have our 2 Spidey Dude Alt Series shows. Clone Saga Chronicles, hosted by me, the show all about the 90s Clone Saga-related characters that started it all here on the network. Spectacular Radio, hosted by Greg Mashinsky, the show all about the 2008-2009 animated series, Spectacular Spider-Man, that ran on Kids WB and Disney XD, with frequent guest being the executive producer of the program, Greg Wiseman. I covered every episode of the series as well. Amazing Spider-Man Classic Season 1 was 3 guys talking about Spidey from the beginning, with Season 2 being a father and son duo, Jack and Javi Trujillo doing it for themselves. We got the Spectacular Spidey Sal Buscema era podcast, hosted by Chris Dedman, talks about the era of Spectacular Spider-Man comic drawn by our pal Sal Buscema. And then finally, Voices from the Eerie, a Gargoyles podcast, hosted by Greg Pashansky. Jennifer L. Anderson covers the Gargoyles animated series with co-creator Greg Wiseman as a frequent guest. And we got our newest show, Books of X, will be a Patreon first show hosted by Neil Bogenwriter. It talks about the Krakoa era of X-Men from the beginning. Finally, our sister program here on the YouTube channel is the Spidey Dude Experience, hosted by me. You can find it in the archives of that show here on here and all the rest of the shows on spidey-dude.com. The links are down in the description below. And finally, before we get started, we've got our Patreon page at patreon.com/Spidey Network. I got to thank our friends over there like Vinkman, Scott, who have been our supporters almost the beginning of the show. We got Greg, Kale, Phoenician, Georgia, Jessica, Cindy, Catherine, Keegar, Laura, Master Draman, and our 2 newest Patreon subscribers, Ed Reynolds and Allison Farquhar. Thanks to you guys and girls for your support on all the shows on the Spidey Dude Radio Network. And if you're listening to the audio edition of the show, please pay it no mind, and we'll make some references to some visual aids and/or live comments, since these are live streamed on our YouTube channel. So, dear audio listener, leave us that 5-star review on your favorite podcasting catcher, and we will read any feedback on the show. Thanks. If you're watching us live or after the fact, give us that like, share, and subscribe, will you? As always, I must introduce one of my favorite people and one of the most passionate Spider-Girl fans on the internet webs, the host of Make Mine Mayday, Kelly McDaniel. Hello, Kelly.
Hi.
So, we don't have much in terms of news this episode, right?
I don't think so. I'll be honest. Did not fully read what you wrote. I definitely don't have anything. I mean, I think so far, at least in terms of comics, is the Swiftie reference in ASM, which I think is funny that everyone's freaking out over and not realizing that that was clearly a Taylor Swift line.
We also, in March, will have the new Next Infinity comic that did get announced.
Oh, that is news. There we go.
So it is officially announced starting in the middle of March 14th, I believe.
Yes, so it'll be March 14th for the first issue, and then it'll run, it's 4 issues, right? So it'll run each week after.
I think it's 2. I remember it being either 2. It could be 2 or 4. I don't remember.
So they're all each half issues generally online. Okay. So like it's issue 1, issue 2. Now I think they've only put out 2 as terms of the solicits, which is a little strange. So maybe it's just 2. I don't know. I thought it was like 4, because normally it's like in a batch of 4. So I guess we'll wait till Ron confirms. But yeah, no. It does start on the 14th.
Yeah. we've kind of established with the last episode that there wasn't a lot of communication until, in fact, I think I was one of the first ones to tell them that the actual date had been announced. So,
well, that was why, like, when I saw it, I said, "Hey, go tell them, because go make sure they're aware, because we need to say something." But I guess like nobody knows till solicits come out, so that's a whole thing. Speaking of, though, I guess it'd be more housekeeping news. As you mentioned before we started recording, for audio, why don't you mention what the top YouTube viewership is? What episode?
So our last episode with Tom, Ron, and Pat is the most liked episode on our channel, and our right now 5th best viewed episode on the channel, and climbing the charts. The other 4 episodes ahead of it are our first 4 episodes of this show. So the fact that
who knows if our playlist had been fixed.
Well, the playlists, speaking of, the playlists have been fixed. Thank you for mentioning that. For both Make Mine Mayday and Spidey Dude Experience, they've all been fixed. I am working on the audio editions right now. So you guys will hear that. If you're listening to the audio, you're not going to know any better. But if you're if you're watching the video, obviously you know that I am like a total of 12 episodes behind between this show and Spidey Dude Experience. So I got some work cut out for me. So I know what I'm doing this weekend. So been working a lot on the iTunes stuff and just the back end stuff. I did a lot of work on that literally last night when I couldn't sleep. And so, yeah, you'll see some differences also in like our descriptions on the episodes. I'm trying to make sure that all the links are there. Music stuff that we use is there, and that way we're getting traction on the algorithms as well. So hopefully you like that new description that I've got on this starting it with this episode. And if you like it, let us know. Leave us an email. You can leave us an email at makemymayday@gmail.com. We will have an email later on in the episode, as well as we're going to read some iTunes reviews. Apple Podcast reviews. iTunes reviews tells you how long I've been doing podcasting.
Well, it's not just iTunes. Well, some of them were. It was wherever you found.
Yeah, so 3 of them are Apple Podcast reviews. There's one that's a Podcast Addict review. So with a familiar name. That's very familiar to our show.
Yeah, who also has an email. Huh.
Yeah. So
yeah.
learning a lot from that person later on.
Yes.
He's in the comments right now. Hello,
He's in the comments. Hi, Bateman.
So, also, I know some people might be expecting us to be talking about Quantumania, but Kelly saw part of it.
I need to rewatch it. Zach needs to rewatch it. Maybe we'll do that this weekend. But ultimately, at least from our preliminary watches, there's a Cassie. It's a version of our Cassie. And that's it.
The costume looks very much like our Cassie, like a MCU version.
In fairness, recently, in the last few years, it's the same costume that's been in 616.
Oh yeah, that argument was made last night on my appearance on the Comic Binge YouTube channel, which YouTube.com/Comic Binge. I was on there with Paul and the gang, and we were kind of talking about that. There was a bit of debate, Stature versus Stinger, and I kind of. Well,
she's also in that suit. She has been called Stinger. Like that's the thing. Like I understand some people still want to call her Stature because of previous stuff in the 616, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing either. But she's always worn that suit and been called Stinger. Vinkman, the reviews are very old.
I will explain what happened on that. Okay, more to come.
yeah. We'll explain it all when we get there. But we are, even though I had fixed it in Facebook, and because that was the only power I had, but you have it sitting here as episodes 28 through 31.
Yes. Okay. So let me acknowledge that I messed up on the graphic. In my brain, I somehow made.
What is issue 31?
It's a mythical creature. There is no issue 31. So
The episode is where, or episode, the issue 31 is just where May gets a day off and can actually chill out for a day.
yeah, her and the family go to Coney Island and have like get ice cream and chili dogs. That's issue 31. So yes, I messed up on the graphic. My bad. Sorry, guys. So if if you're watching us live on, if you're seeing that, I will fix it. Because I'm going to be making the graphics for the next few episodes. I'm going to try to make the graphic. I'm trying to get ahead on making the graphics and everything. So I'm also working on updating the graphics while I'm working on all the back audio stuff. So be sure to go check all that out and give me a pat on the back. So normally, last episode, the last review episode, which was 2 episodes ago, we kind of talked about I didn't give a lot of history context because I knew coming here. So if you're ready for me to go through that whole
let it rip.
So we're going to talk about what's going on in Marvel at the time. That's been a common occurrence that we've done on the program. This is your first time listening. Welcome. So boys and girls, in our history segment of the program today, I will be doing my best to convey you as to what was going on with the title at the time. The unfortunate thing is that there was a huge gap between snapshots on the Wayback Machine of the Spider-Girl message board from 2008 and into 2009. In fact, there is nothing from May of 2008 until November of 2009. So there's this big significant gap. So this does pick up later, but there's this big lull in the timeline, so to speak. So this is going off my memory. So apologies if I get some facts wrong here. Ron, if you're watching us at the studio, feel free to correct me if you're watching us live. Winking a nod. By the time we knew what was going on, we knew things at Marvel weren't necessarily going to be going our way. By the time we got to the end of this run, the Scholastic deal was under the renegotiating period and had eventually fell apart. So originally that deal was really advantageous to Marvel, where they took a significant portion of the sales from the setup. And so while that was really working for a while, Scholastic wanted to take a bigger cut when it came to renegotiation time. A much, much bigger cut, so much that it wasn't going to make financial sense for Marvel to continue the partnership, and thus they canceled the lineup across the board. Spider-Girl was the biggest seller in that line. There was others like Runaway that were part of the launch, but Spider-Girl was the most consistent seller and had the most volumes that was released. It was the most, as Ron mentioned in the last episode, it was the biggest selling title at Marvel at the time. So when that deal fell apart, they kept saying, keep producing these single issues because we're going to need that to feed into the digests. So part of the reason there wasn't really a lot of this was all the biggest reason that there wasn't any cancellation notices for the 2.5 years of Amazing Spider-Girl. So keep producing, keep being consistent. They'll keep publishing. So they need the floppies to feed. This was somewhat kind of put a target on the back of Spider-Girl because there was a lot of lower selling books that had diminishing returns that weren't doing as well. Tom and Ron, especially Ron, has referenced this in multiple places and multiple interviews, but both Joe Quesada, the editor-in-chief of Marvel, and Steve Wacker, the executive editor of the Spider-Man group, had a soft spot for the book. And so to promote the new Marvel digital offering of comics, Marvel Unlimited, they used Spider-Girl as a means to try to bring in the built-in audience to grow from. At the same time, Marvel had done a lot of experimentation with anthology books during this period of time. They brought back Spider-Man Unlimited, which was kind of used as a way of doing tryouts for various writers and artists to bring them on for bigger roles. I notably recall a young Jim Chung being brought in to do a couple of issues, and that was kind of his tryout, and then he eventually got bigger, more profile books. This continued into the brand new day era of books, which is really the publishing time that we're at in Marvel, with a book called Amazing Spider-Man Family. But we will definitely talk about that a lot more in the next episode. But this is kind of a primer for that, since this is the end of one era. So in the letters page, it references the impending end of the run. In fact, it was the letters pages of our first issue that the announcement of Amazing Spider-Man Family number 5 was coming. And this would reprint the first Spectacular Spider-Girl digital book. So that's a lot, Kelly, I know. Sorry.
No, it's all good because it is a lot. But yeah, so even though this is the end of Amazing, this was not the end of Spider-Girl at all, although it in some ways did feel like the writing was on the wall.
Yeah. Also, the first issue of Amazing Spider-Girl was 22 pages. Then moving forward, it was 16.
Mm-hmm.
So they actually referenced that in, I think, the last letters page of issue 30. So just so everybody knows, they were slightly smaller parts because they were fitting into that anthology book.
Yeah.
So, without further ado, I guess we can get into the 28th issue of the series. I will be doing the rundown for the first two, and then Kelly's going to do the last rundown of Amazing Spider-Girl.
Yes. Yep.
So, without further ado, we'll start with the Amazing Spider-Girl number 28. The cover date was March of 2009, with the release date of January 14th of 2009. Now, the breakdown says Grim, or the title of the book is Grim Be My Goblin. Words by the legendary Tom DeFalco. It is in the contract, and I have to do it now. Pencils by Ravisher Ron Friends, and finishes by our pal Sal Buscema. Plot is by Tom and Ron. Chris Sotomayor did the color. David Sharp did the lettering. Tom Brennan is our editor. Our issue opens where the previous issue left off. Black Tarantula is pissed. He still thinks that Aranya is in May's body, but we know that May is back to normal. We have Black Tarantula smashing things while May is trying to talk reasonable sense into him. Our mystery May, floating head of guilt, is relaying to Mayday that the madman won't listen to reason. Mayday continues to try to put distance between her and Black Tarantula, and he shoots his laser beams out of his eyes because that is one of his powers. May, in an attempt to dodge them, also learns that Aranya kissed Black Tarantula and learns that there's a history between the two, which for May is way too much information. Anywho, since a kiss started this mess, maybe a second one should end it. We have Fabian realizing the error of his ways. He kind of feels like a dum-dum, and he apologizes to May. We then cut to Aranya, who is falling to her doom because things hit at the right time. She manages to recover when April swings by. Anya questions her, but quickly discerns that it's not Mayday, but in fact the imposter. Her words, not mine, aka April. April blurts out that her father is in danger. We then cut to Kane, Phil, Normie, DarkDevil, and Brenda openly talking about Mayday and her being Spider-Girl in front of Brenda, who at this point I just suppose was told off panel because despite she's not reacting at all to the situation. Kane plays the clone's advocate, which is a little bit different than the devil's advocate, saying that April might be the original and May might be the clone, echoing that old chestnut. And Riley rightfully pointing out that this is something that Norman would do since he did it before. Of course, for those that don't know, Kane and Riley, by extension, know this because, and maybe Normie knows about it, but this is definitely a Clone Saga reference. Brenda and Phil don't really know the extent of what Norman's capable of in regards to this cloning stuff, so just kind of a side note. Normie decides to make a bold choice. He will surrender himself for Peter. And then we cut. Meanwhile, May kind of sort of fills in Fabian into what's going on. And Chesbro is tasked with fixing this poor apartment that's just been wrecked. May runs off to while Black Tarantula runs off from Black Tarantula and tends to a personal matter. Meanwhile, Fury, who might be dead, she's not dead, but she might be dead. It looked like she was dead because she's got like this soul, like this. Yeah, just the way her face was drawn made me think that maybe she was dead. The phone rings, her phone. It's Normie calling Fury to arrange the deal. Norman/Pete says he owes it to his grandson that his services as the heir to the Goblin throne are no longer required. May arrives home to Mary Jane and Benji knows his sister is back and leaps out to greet her. And if you've ever had a toddler leap out to greet you, it is the greatest feeling in the world. Just saying. Side note, that's just my dad part talking. Anyway, so May comes back came back to check on the family, and Mystery May remarks it's wonderful to see Mary Jane and little Benji, which should also tell you who this May is, but let's save that for later. So it's time for the
you couldn't tell in the very beginning.
I mean, there might be some people that don't know.
Okay, and also she didn't say little Benji. She called him Benjamin.
Yes, excuse me. She did call him Benjamin, not little Benji. She would use the full name. Like she would like if it was that person calling my daughter by her name, she would use Gabriella, not Gabby. She doesn't. She's old school. Wink, wink, not not. Anyway, so we cut to it's time for the exchange. Normie and Brenda are arguing that this is a trap, and Brenda, you're not wrong. Normie says that Phil, Kane, and DarkDevil will get the drop on Fury, and that he's fine, everything's fine. But it's Normie risking his life, which should be no surprise to anybody. Norman/Peter shows up to Phil and sneak attacks him. Norman calling him Philip is the snarktacular icing on the cake. Black Tarantula and Mayday show up at the Goblin hideout with May seeing Mr. DeJean and thinking he looked, not lewd, looked familiar. Sorry, I had to.
Sorry, I didn't have time to fix the spelling errors I normally do.
My bad. That's fine. I should have done a spell check before. Anyway, Black Tarantula threatens his life, and then we cut to Anya and April. Anya senses that something is wrong and sees, quote, her face and gets punched out, Sal Buscema style. We cut to Peter/Norman attacking DarkDevil and using Peter Parker's face to get the drop. We cut to Black Tarantula and Mayday singing away, and Mayday wondering if she would have, if Black Tarantula would have tortured a goon in her presence. Fabian assures her that he wouldn't have, as he wouldn't have even been there to do so in the first place. They split up. Black Tarantula is going after Anya, Mayday to go save Peter. Normie Pete is attacking Kane and having a fun time. This is when Mayday shows up, and Kane tells Mayday to leave. Mayday is not having it and begins to attack Norman Peter. She wants answers, and it turns out she's smacking her dad. This gives him the advantage, and he starts to pummel her. We zoom into the eye of Norman Peter, and we see a little Peter in the glint of his eye. Now Norman/Peter are going to race. Either he wins and Benji and MJ die, or Mayday stops her dad. The classic, I just hear in my brain Willem Dafoe saying, the hero's choice. Sorry. Normie says that the goblin is back and that he saw a ghost. Mayday has hitched a ride and then uses her other hand to stop Goblin Guy. This is her name for him. Momentum. They are close to Queens and the house. May then springboards her way into knocking Goblin Guy off the glider and into the house. May gets ambushed by April and Goblin Guy saying that the whole family is here, just as they are about to die. To be continued. Kelly, what are your thoughts on this particular issue?
I was muted. All right. So, obviously, awesome issue. As always, I've got to go all the way down to my notes. But basically, I think the main thing that I want to bring up here is the quote-unquote elephant in the room, because it's something that we were hearing or seeing in the questions we were getting asked to bring up, and we didn't want to bring it up because I think something's lost in the context here. People didn't like the cover of 28 a lot and did not like how Mayday was kissing Fabian. And so here in this issue, on her own accord, on her choice, she does it to stop the fight. And yes, there's an age gap. Yes, it's kind of gross, but it's not really romantic here. Like I said, May does it to prove that she's not Anya. And it's something that Fabian clearly seems to know just by that kiss, because they kiss differently. And again, I'm assuming
he uses tongue.
Yeah, I don't think May used tongue. I would hope not. But don't think that happened. But the thing is May also initiated this, kind of like how she initiated the kiss with Normie.
And what I'm saying is that I don't think Mayday would have quote unquote tongue. She would just been like, if she just planted a kiss on him.
Yeah, which exactly. She's not giving any sort of intensity there. It's just more of all right, let's try it. And it was something to prove a point in a rampage. I do get people feeling icky about it. I do understand the age gap difference. We've discussed it. We've discussed how that's creepy and weird in Fabian's crush. But as we kind of can see, Fabian doesn't really have a crush on Mayday. he just knows what he's supposed to do for his crime mob, his family, his lineage. And he just sees her as a good, not even a good fit, because he kind of starts to realize that that's not ever happening. But like, he got a romantic idea. We find out that there's been history between him and Anya. We'll see a little bit more. Clearly, they have far more chemistry, but she probably won't be well liked if she was his bride. And we'll find out in 30 why that's not cool. But I get why people feel icky. My thing is just in this context, it's a bit different. I don't think that it's as bad as people like the question, like the way people were commenting about it, the way they were making it sound to us, because it's not quite that, like it was done to literally stop a fight before someone got hurt, not to, not for any kind of weird purposes, which is it's just a little bit different. I think the thing that strikes me wrong and icky way more is just how Norman is talking through Peter, like when he talks to Normie. And it's just something about seeing Peter's face and knowing that it's Norman talking, but like see Peter's face and kind of assuming it's probably Peter's voice to a certain extent. Calling Normie his grandson, like that makes my skin crawl more.
Yeah.
Because it's like, we know Peter can't consent to any of this. That's disgusting, because it's like, yeah, it's almost like I was super disgusted by Anya using May's underage body, to kiss her ex. That's gross. But like, at least here, May has it's her own accord. It's her choice. It's what she chose to do, regardless
She
if
has
you agree with it or not. Yeah, there's autonomy. So it's it's a little bit different, but maybe I'm weird. Don't think I am here on this though. But that's really like the main takeaways I have, and of course, a lot of it is coming from the things that we were being asked to try and to read out on the interview, and it was just something that's still kind of striking me. Because we'll touch base here and there on some of the things we were talking about, because like somehow they've all come to a head in these issues. So
yeah, and I'll talk about this probably when we get to 30, but it did not register with me that this is kind of a direct sequel of the Revenge of the Green Goblin series that Pat and Ron did, until Ron brought that up in the last episode. So
I mean, of course I always took the Revenge of the Green Goblin as like Bible, just because that's kind of what JR did on Spidey Kicks Butt. So as a small child, or not that small, but you get it. That's what I took. So I kind of knew that this was happening, but I will say it's a light bulb moment when you actually hear the creator say, well, this is what we were doing. Even though like I saw what was happening, especially when we first read this, like I knew this was happening, but it's more of just kind of like really thinking on it and going like, think about how absolutely sinister this is. They like downloaded their brainwave patterns or whatever, science fiction goobly-gook, to download their brain into their friend's son's brain, their arch nemesis's brain, to then take over their life and take over their body
and become a God King.
Well, okay, I think that we'll talk more on that, because I really like, as much as it says, oh, this is a grand plan, this also feels like one of Norman's where he just took bits and pieces of different plans, because he's literally flying off the seat of his pants. And so like, I think he would have still tried to download himself into Peter. The issue at hand was they stumbled onto the symbiote. Little bit of a spoiler. Sorry, this stumbled onto the symbiote, found something to help with that symbiote, because at first they were just going to let it rot. And then that's where they found the other plan, because the download was kind of always a backup plan if Normie would not do right. And so I think this kind of just became a mixture of everything, because everything was at the fingertips at the time.
It's almost as if,
unfortunately, April is another afterthought.
Yeah. With Norman, far too often, he comes across as this Machiavellian type supervillain. But it's really that he's just so flexible as it's not necessarily meticulously planned down to the detail like it sometimes is often portrayed with him as. It's more like I can he's very adept at moving chess pieces around. And especially when you read like the late 90s version of Norman, you know, post resurrection, that's definitely how Norman acts, is that he's, you know, he doesn't sit there and meticulously plan. He sits there and basically lets the snowball go down the hill and then adapts accordingly. And that's definitely, I agree with you on that. That's a very good point. Sometimes I think people tend to, because, you know, well, he was the architect of the Clone Saga. And I'm like, if you actually go back and read Osborn Journal, it's a series of coincidences that he turns around and uses to his advantage. It's not that he had this grandmaster plan. The part of, you know, making question Peter's identity, that part is true, but the rest of it, the details, that was all making it up as he goes.
Yeah. So in our comments, Vinkman has brought up that there was another Lil Benji backup. We were using Marvel Unlimited to read this, so I am pulling up something.
I've got this issue right here. So let me.
Yeah. Well, I'm pulling up my secret stash, and I'm not.
We don't advocate.
Oh, there we go. I got it. Yeah.
Got it?
Yeah. So it's. I'll just read it out. For this. So it's Lil Benji, the spectacular spider baby, called Cool Cake. And so translated from Baby Talk, I've totally forgotten the little girl's name again. But Benji's little girlfriend, Shelly. Shelly and Benji are at Benji's house, and Mary Jane is baking a cake while it's snowing outside, and basically they're just seeing the flour getting sifted, and then think that the flour is the snow outside, and it's cute.
Reminds me, there's an old Calvin and Hobbes bit where it's Calvin and Hobbes, and they're like, and Calvin's looking at Hobbes, and he's like, "Hobbes, check this out. You can take an ordinary piece of bread, stick it in the toaster, and then it becomes toast." And he's like, "Well, where did the toast come?" You know, and Hobbes is grabbing the toaster, going, "Where did the bread go?" That's kind of what that reminds me of.
Yes. No, and it's just cute. I'm about to double check on 29 as you go through it to make sure we don't have any side stories, but I actually don't believe we do.
Okay.
But I'm double checking.
Okay.
While you read.
I'll give my thoughts on this issue. The cover to me is awesome. The half goblin / Spidey looks so creepy, but I dig it. As I mentioned, that they kind of took a little bit of like a aged effect on these covers.
Yeah, and you notice that, like, this, to me, this cover is really, I mean, they're all always a piece of art, but like this one could be a really cool poster. You know, like this it looks different. Like, to me, it looks a little bit different than what we're used to, especially like these last 3 or 4 covers. There's a shift in the cover change.
So that little Benji story is the last little Benji story. We hardly knew you.
Well, actually, was there more in Family?
I think, you know what? I think that they may have done it in Family, but I'll have to double check. It may have been.
We're gonna have to like find.
I have got all the Family issues. So whenever we do that, starting next episode, I will be pulling those Amazing Spider-Man Family issues out. And I'll also cross-reference it with what's on those issues on Marvel.
We're gonna have to, especially because this is the problem with the anthology series, is Marvel Unlimited likes to pick and choose, especially early Marvel Unlimited scans, like to pick and choose what they were going to scan in and what they weren't. I don't know why. So
we will definitely be doing the yeoman's work that is required, because it starts off Amazing Spider-Man Family, then it jumps over into Web of Spider-Man, the second volume of the series. That was
yes, and well, two, there's also Mr. and Mrs. Spider-Man that are in those issues as well.
Yes, so we
will have to pull.
Those were confirmed multiple times to be canon to Earth 982.
Yeah.
So just so everybody knows.
Yes.
So it reminds me a little bit, if you've never seen it, there's a Spectacular Spider-Man number 211 is part of the Pursuit storyline, and it's a picture of Peter, and his mask is half ripped, and it's drawn by Sal, and he's like kind of screaming. He's just viscerally angry, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of that as a bit of a homage. But I was thinking, we were talking about this being a poster. I guarantee you, if this ever had gotten made as a poster, we both know a certain somebody would have purchased that day one. So,
well, I mean, JR's not going to purchase the lounge fly bag and matching wallet.
He did tell me he's going to purchase the Hallows Eve variant because of the fact that it's the Green Goblin by Alex Ross.
Oh, well, that makes sense. No, I'm just saying that, like, recently there have been some Green Goblin official merch, and I don't see JR carrying it around.
You know, I mean, it'd be kind of funny. Like, you really are leaning into the whole Goblin persona. You're carrying around a satchel, man purse.
It's a mini backpack.
Mini backpack. Okay, all right, mini backpack.
Yeah.
So
anyway,
I like how Fabian acts in this issue. There's kind of a sort of an honor code to him, where he's not going to do harm necessarily to Mayday's.
We discussed this before. I mean, that's the thing. Fabian has a code of honor. Regardless if his morals are a slight bit skewed, he's never going to go past, like, everything he's ever done, because it's like he knows her face.
Yeah.
And even though she won't say, oh yeah, you already know who I am, he probably does know who she is. But he's not going to say it. He's not going to bring it up. Because that crosses a line for him. Like, he knows that that's contention of respect.
The fact that she was unmasked, and there's a level of comfort there. Normally anybody else, she would have freaked out. But the fact that she's unmasked and she's able to be unmasked and be comfortable around that, and it also shows that he just has this respect for her code of honor, but he's also not afraid to step out of. He's like, he knows where the line is, and he's going to sit there and go as close to the line as possible. And then my final note is that Norman as Peter, aka Goblin Guy, is bonkers, and that there's a level of glee that Norman has for effing Peter this bad, and you could tell that I think that Tom was having a ball writing crazy ass Norman.
Wait! You mean a writer enjoys torturing their characters?
I think a writer enjoys letting the characters drive the story, and wherever that takes them.
Yes.
Because that is different than wanting to torture your own characters. Slut.
I will say this. And see, this has been my thing, and I was going to point of contention when it was said in the interview, but I was too busy, like, awing. The way I've always understood the Harry download, and therefore this kind of brain download, is that it's still downloaded. It's not them turning into them. It's them turning into an AI of that person, essentially. Which means there is a limit on how much it can fully understand. And that's kind of why, like, the Harry download situation, like the Harry stuff, that computer stuff was very unhinged and almost unhuman-like to Harry, because we always knew Harry, at the end of the day, Harry had a big heart. He was just a very confused person.
Oh, and even when
here, Norman's crazy, but like this, there's almost that, like I said, the level of humanity. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you. But anyway.
No. One of the things that I'll say too is that DeFalco kind of established this whole downloading one's consciousness into a computer trope with the master programmer and Doc Ock. So, because that's how they resurrected Ock. They basically, the hand resurrects the body of Dr. Octopus.
Hey, you know who should have stayed dead? Doc Ock. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm of two minds of that, because like there's part of me that has enjoyed certain stories with him. However, he got so he became as overexposed as Norman in the last years.
Well, again, this also drives into another point of the story, which we'll talk about as we continue. But because again, spoiler, there's a part where Norman says, "Why won't anybody die?" And I'm just like, pot, meat, kettle.
I'm like, this is the dude that got impaled in the chest with a goblin glider, and he's sitting there saying, "Why don't you just die?"
Yeah. So again, felt like some semi commentary. But again, yeah, no, that's the whole thing, is that ultimately this is still not. It's as human as it can be, especially during the time that this was written. This was very sci-fi.
Yes.
But it's still not. It's still not like it's Norman, but it's not Norman, if that makes any sense.
Agreed.
This is like Norman downloaded his journal into a AI program.
Well, this Norman Osborn's the same guy that literally wrote fake journals just to F with Peter.
Exactly. So like
direct cues from the High Evolutionary and Miles Morales.
Yeah.
So, all right, so with that issue, I'll do the rundown of issue number 29. So, writing down the timestamp, because I'm trying to put the timestamps in the description down below. Starting with this episode. So, it is titled "End of Maze." The same group that did the last issue did this issue. Cover date is April of 2009. The release date is February 11th, 2009. Which, oh boy, it's almost 15 years ago. Ugh. I know. Our issue begins with May and April tied up in fighting with a horrified Mary Jane looking and holding Benji. MJ is trying to talk to Mayday about what's going on because she's thoroughly confused, but April is still convinced that she is the original. This leads to our 2-page splash of Mayday kicking April in the face, with Goblin Guy looking crazy in the background. MJ yells at Not Peter, wondering why he's dressed like that grinning gargoyle. And he replies that his real family was betrayed by the Parkers and fires a sparkler blast at them, being MJ and Benji. May webs a shield up and stops it while she runs. MJ thinks that she can reach Peter, but Norman throws pumpkin bombs and razor bats at them. Mayday grabs Benji and Mary Jane and dodges them, while April looks confused and wonders, why are you doing that? Norman/Peter replies, aka Goblin Guy, replies that father knows best. April attacks and MJ finally flees. We cut to the rooftop where Anya was out cold, but Black Tarantula is helping her come to by smacking her around. The two go back and forth over what's happened over the last few issues, with Anya swapping with May, with their shared past of trying to kill one another. But Anya's freaked out, and she tells Black Tarantula that the imposter May is not human. This kind of shakes Fabian, and he wants to learn more. We then cut to MJ fleeing, similar to the style of Time Bomb, but Norman has given chase. She runs underground at the subway, and Mayday has given chase as well. Norman remarks that she is her father's daughter, and that he's going to put people in danger. This, of course, causes her to question everything internally. So as May tries to save some strangers that are being attacked by Norman, April attacks, wondering why she's setting herself up to be attacked to save a life of some rando. Norman then grabs Mary Jane and they fly off together with Mary Jane and Benji. MJ implores Peter to fight it, and Norman, at one point, kind of acts like he's, taking control, pulls a switcheroo, so to speak, but it's actually, Peter is actually fighting. But he tries to play it off like he pulled the switcheroo like a jerk. Suddenly, the spider sense starts going off, and May is marveling at how MJ is not freaking out and takes her away. April and Norman start to remark that the end of May is near, aka the part of the reference to the title of the book. When Black Tarantula and Aranya are here to help, Norman is kind of puzzled that Mayday has so many friends because her father didn't have this many friends. Norman takes on Black Tarantula while April attacks Aranya and May. Aranya takes off April's mask to reveal her true self. And it's here that we get the first appearance of what would be known as Mayhem, where she kind of fully turns blue into the symbiote version of herself.
It's a mixture. Yeah. I wouldn't call this full mayhem, and this is kind of why, like, even if my notes say April, I'm going to try my best not to say April because her name has not been established as April yet.
Yes. So we've called her April throughout this point just to differentiate between the two Mays, because we would have been
in my defense, when we discuss her as April.
Yeah.
But all my breakdowns, I've always said who will become April at the most.
So she creates razor sharp blades with her symbiote powers to try to kill Anya. Black Tarantula, despite his desire to kill Anya, leaps in front of them and takes the hit. Norman holds off May while April wonders if she did well. We then kind of finally get Norman/Peter pontificating of the origin story of what's happened. So if this is your first time reading the book, this is kind of your backstory. Norman remarks that he manipulated both the girls to ensure that Peter's powers passed on to Mayday, kind of putting to rest those mutant rumors, maybe?
Apparently not, but anyway.
Apparently not. We also learned that he took a sample of the symbiote directly from Eddie Brock and created the hybrid that we see now. We see that Norman has used a brain enhancer to copy his mind to create an heir. But fate then intervened and Norman was killed off. Philip, the lovely stooge, I use that sarcastically, has stumbled upon the lab thanks to Fury stabbing May back in the first volume of the series during the Back in Black arc. Combined with an update of the symbiote, Philip arranged to have Normie sort of find the lab and bring it back there, describing Normie as the perfect pawn. He remarks that Fury isn't around to help with the final triumph, but she will be more compliant next time, so it implies that she didn't die, but Norman is about to ascend into godhood, but by combining April and himself, but then May leaps onto them as a stowaway. Aranya and Black Tarantula witness the combined might of May, April, Peter, Norman, and floating head of guilt May as the Goblin God is here. In the Mindscape, Mystery May helps Mayday up. They are in Peter's mind, haunted by the past and twisted by Norman Osborn. It's here that May learns that it wasn't necessarily easy being Spider-Man. Mystery May leads Mayday to the stronghold of his subconsciousness, a dome with MJ, Mayday, and Benji adorning it. Mayday remarks that even though they weren't around when he first on the webs, but Mystery May remarks that he's added to it over the years. And when they kind of walk by showing our hero throughout the years, like the wedding, Aunt May and Uncle Ben, giving him his first microscope, etc. Inside this dome houses the very soul of Peter Parker. But the outer wall has been breached. And we see Norman with Peter in his grasp. Peter's, thinking that all is lost. Norman is in his classic getup, sans mask, and Peter is in his costume, sans mask. Norman flies over everyone and the heroes outside of the Mindscape, and the heroes that we have previously assembled, Kane, Raptor, Phil, Normie, they all see this happen, and Normie sees Norman as the Goblin God. He's hunting for Mary Jane, and he eventually finds her. You see in Norman's mind, he only needed to get one victory. MJ stands up to him and that she doesn't buy his hogwash. MJ smacks the taste out of Norman's mouth, remarking that he remarks that she may be only a Parker by marriage, but she's just as infuriating as her husband and daughter. He then breaks her arm, tells her that she needs to face reality, that Norman has won, And now everyone dies. To be concluded.
Dun dun dun. Don't use it.
Oh man.
All right. So yeah, no, I love this issue. It's one of my favorites, I think, because it really gives you the stakes. And again, thank you for breaking it down for me after the insane week I'm having. As you can clearly tell, I'm at my mom's and not the office. So
She looks more comfortable.
I do. But in general, just
Air hug.
I'm here. Thank you. Lucy was sick while my grandmother was, so I came to help out. Lucy's better. She's fine. She's.
I had Daisy got a little sick. Got me all worried.
Aw.
But I think her and Waylon got to playing a little too rough, and she.
It's fine. I actually was gonna try to get to work at some point this week, and got the dog fussed at me. No, like loud fussing, which I know that sounds strange. Of so the dog forced you to stay, but yes.
Listen,
yes, the 20-pound French bulldog forced me to stay.
Benji, my dog that lives with my dad now. Not the last time that I went home, but the time before holidays, but the time before that, when I was only there for a day, he got so angry at me. He started growling when I picked him up to tell him I was leaving. Just kept sneezing,
Yeah.
excuse you, how dare you leave? Because dogs have feelings too.
Yeah, and you can't hurt them. That's wrong. That's morally improper. No, I mean there's other things going on too, but in general, just going to keep it light and talk about the puppo. But thank you for assisting because things got kind of crazy personally. But obviously the big thing for me about this issue is the girl who will be April. April being a symbiote, which now we all know, but back then we really didn't. I thought that was a big twist at the time and really made things interesting on the old clone plot. As I stated earlier in an earlier review, when we saw the clone, I was like, oh God, clones again. The writing's on the wall. This is over. We've jumped shark. And I was really upset about it. And I will admit that I was wrong. As I stated, I was going to, because of this twist right here, because finding out that she's not just a clone, she was mixed with symbiote DNA and is really something different. And as we all know, everyone loves Venom, especially Eminem and Tyler. And
Hi, Tyler.
Yeah, hi Tyler. If he's listening, but it creates a different dynamic and it creates a different kind of situation. She wasn't just cloned, she was also experimented on, and she was left in a stasis chamber to rot. And in her mind, what has been downloaded into her mind, because she was technically born yesterday, is that she is the original daughter. But I want to make mention here too, when they bring kind of everything all up, her DNA had to be updated. Normally the stable DNA doesn't have to be updated. And who was stable enough to survive all these years without update?
That also is to also, had there been hypnosis that was supposed to be like an injection of the RNA memory cells.
Yes, yeah, that too. I'm not gonna deny that, but the issue is the DNA literally came off Fury's blade, and then I'm assuming Renee took it. But this only had so they had only found her stasis chamber just prior to that, and they wouldn't have had any way, shape, or form to be able to get to her until she got May got impaled, which I guess was the first time Elan showed up. So I guess that this started this off, correct?
Yes.
Crazy? I don't think I am. So essentially, like, Elan was one, just to go into this grand conspiracy theory and how angry I am at Norman's very patriarchal BS. Elan was a pawn to get to Normie. And when Normie refused, that's what triggered the brain download. Somewhere along them trying to find the brain download is where they found April. They needed the DNA to update April, which means even though we see it in the background that she does look like May, her DNA is not stable. It's probably one reason why she was in the stasis chamber. She probably would have been by way of what was happening to Riley. If not.
Yes, and that would have, if they never released her, then she would have likely, because of
rotted. Rotted in the stasis chamber too. So again, they had to fix that by reinforcing her DNA.
And
but
adding
well, no. They added the symbiote when she was a baby.
Right, but I think adding the symbiote also was.
And that would be a reason why Elan had Venom to begin with at the engagement.
And I think that they were not only utilizing the DNA sample, but also using the symbiote as a means of a stabilizing agent on top of adding.
No, I don't actually agree with that. I don't think that's what was happening. Obviously, Ron can speak if I'm wrong, but when we see the flashback, or we see Norman's version of the flashback, and of course, yes, it's Norman. Norman lies, and this isn't even really Norman. It's his downloaded memories. But I assume since this is all together, it's a part of the plan. He had already had the symbiote bonded to the clone baby, and I'm going to call her the clone baby because she is a clone. Period.
Ron says they had been in to ensure and include Mayday's abilities that didn't kick in.
Okay. Fine. I still think April's the clone. I don't care. But no. I'm allowed to think it even if I'm wrong.
Old headcanon.
But yeah, no. And that's possible and blew my whole thing on where I've constantly just said April is the clone. And the answer has been there all along. Out of the water. That's fine. It's okay. I will accept it. But again, poor April was stuck in a stasis chamber and was just a pawn in this whole thing to begin with. And that's absolutely horrible. And so was Elan. And that's wrong. And Norman gets what he deserves in the end.
Yeah. So, fun fact about this issue for me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
My issue, my floppy, got ruined thanks to Gabby as a toddler spilling a milkshake on it. I don't even remember why. I think I just had grabbed a stack of Amazing Spider-Girl just to read. And it was on my coffee table and it got spilled. Toddlers are little small Godzillas, and so yeah. Also, there is a proposed alternate cover for this issue, and I know about that was a homage to Amazing Spider-Girl Amazing Spider-Man number 149, which was Ben Reilly's first canonical appearance. Ron has posted it. I think people have actually requested this as a commission. So it's posted over on his Facebook page as well. Letters page shout outs for Terry Palmer, Michael Jung, Joe and Judy Vickley, John Dillon, J.D. Fitzpatrick, our friend John Corner, and Rondell J. Carell. I love this issue. I love the little artistic layers on the dome. It's such a wonderful deep cut with references to things like May and Ben, little Benji, and Peter getting the microscope that's drawn as Steve. Yeah. I love the first appearance of MJ at the center, drawn just like a straight out of John Romita Jr. John Romita Sr. I can't talk today. John Romita Sr. drawing. So like, and then you got May as a basketball player. It's just really, really, really well done. I love the layers of things like Black Tarantula saves Anya, despite what we're going to learn in the next issue. Despite their differences, Norman's being just this magnificent bastard, and just so much more. So like, to me, this is just like a really, really good issue.
Oh yeah, I love the issue, and yes, that is the case unless his sins are taken away. But even that's temporary.
Comments. Pretty much anyone in Norman's orbit is either a pawn or a victim or both.
Yes, it's just, it was more of like realizing how, like, the fact that it's very clear young females in this issue that are getting like completely caught and hit, like they are unwilling pawns, is upsetting to me. I know that that's Norman's MO, but it was like angry in general. But
yeah, so with that, I think
yes, with that, I get to actually do a breakdown.
Yeah, so Ellie's going to do the rundown of issue 30, the last issue of Amazing Spider-Girl.
It is. So, Amazing Spider-Girl 30. Info, cover date is May 2009. Release date was March 18th, 2009. And the title is Never Say Die. May charges at Norman, and he easily swats her away, sending her back in one big swack. As Astro May tries to tell our Mayday to retreat and devise a plan. But Mayday knows that if she turns away from this fight right now, her dad's psyche will be killed. This annoys Norman. Why can't these Parkers just accept defeat? And he uses his control in this psyche realm to play with Peter's memories a bit and kind of show us different parts of Peter's memories at the start and use them to keep Mayday distracted. Norman comments to Peter, however, that Mayday is actually really good before menacingly reminding us that things are happening in the real world outside. As the Goblin God, as he is now called on the outside, is holding MJ's broken forearm in the alleyway, teasing about the hybrid May and how her and Benji's death at the hands of Peter's body will haunt the man for life. And I wrote, aren't you trying to kill his psyche, Norman? I don't think the imprint has a plan, to be honest. It's just running on what it's been programmed to know. But the Goblin God hoists MJ up into the air, and Fabian and Anya can see this as he flies past, dangling Mary Jane and the baby in the air. Fabian and Anya have a moment together as Fabian uses his Black Tarantula powers to heal, and we learn that Anya was the one to kill his father in this universe. Normally, I would double check to see if this lines up in the 616, but I do think Fabian's dad is alive in the 616. So in this universe, Anya tried to kill him and succeeds. And then, and that's kind of a point of their contention. All right, and it's a topic that, as Anya's kind of shocked that Fabian can use his Black Tarantula powers to heal, it's a topic Fabian will discuss with Anya later. Meanwhile, Normie holds on to Phil as they follow the Goblin God to stop Normie's grandfather. They make mention of the whole team having enough firepower to take the Goblin God out, so it seems like the cavalry has all been called in. Inside Peter's mind, Norman switches the playing field to the infamous Brooklyn Bridge, to a favorite memory of Norman's, the night Gwen Stacy died. And so did he, but we'll let a psychologist unpack that later. Astro May seems to know this quite well, which makes Mayday really confused. How does I wrote Miss Trouble. Sorry, had to. How does Miss Trouble know all this? But before any answers can be given, the memory starts, where we see Gwen unconscious, and May can see Gwen needs to get to a hospital. The memory doesn't quite play out the way out it, as we know it, as Memory Norman knocks Gwen off the rooftop, off the roof of the bridge. Sorry, before the young young Peter can use his webs to stop her from falling into the water, a judgment call that that most believe kills her. Mayday jumps into action, quite literally, grabbing Gwen before firing off her webbing to swing them away from crashing into the river. As Gwen wakes up, Mayday tells her that she's going to be just fine, and Gwen asks if it's MJ who saved her. Mayday tells her no, that she's Mary Jane's daughter, and we see that this isn't quite Gwen. It's been April all along. The only time I write April. And May saying that, and basically May saying that she's the daughter of Mary Jane has caused the clone to be quite upset. The unstable DNA one. Sorry. All right, thanks. She's the original, and while her parents raised a clone, she was turned into a monster and left to rot in stasis. Something I'm sure Norman would do if this was 616. But again, someone had stable enough. Right, sorry. I'm going to just skip my entire rant about who was the clone and who wasn't in there. But again, it's April. April's the clone. I don't care. April's the clone. I know who our Mayday is, and that's all I need to know. And we established this here too. But yeah, so she was a monster and left to rot in stasis, which is a very Norman thing to do. So Norman laughs, and it brings us to his laughter in the real world, where Raptor is following the Goblin God as he holds Mary Jane's broken arm and has her dingling across the sky. Brenda uses her comlink to tell her husband where they are headed, to kind of get everybody where they're headed. And I wrote, gee, I wonder where. And when she does, she gets seen by her grandfather-in-law and, basically says, hey, I need backup fast. So Astral May, back in the psyche realm, tries to talk sense into Norman and Peter's psyche. And as Norman goes to grab her, well, let's just say Astral May tries to make things right. The scene changes. They're now in Mayday's memories. First, we see the infamous basketball game at the beginning of What If 105. And then Norman tries to take back control, showing the first fight between Normie and Mayday, also from What If 105. This fight is starting to confuse April. Isn't Normie one of Mayday's friends? May mentions that to her that, they are friends after they stopped fighting. And April uses this as a moment to attack Mayday, saying it's a shame that Mayday must die for her to live. But Mayday does say that there is room for both of them, and it doesn't have to be this way. Not that that's what the clone wants to hear. And then Norman watches the memory of the 105 fight and asks, why did his grandson turn out this way? Why did he go against him? Back in the real world, Brenda, Phil, Normie, and Normie with a pumpkin bomb all circle the Goblin God. As the Goblin asks Normie to rejoin him and accept his true heritage, DarkDevil comes in and uses his flaming bow staff to strike through the Goblin's shoulder, reminding him that Normie is his own man. The Goblin knocks DarkDevil back and into Phil and Normie, and we cut back to Peter's psyche. The Mays are fighting as Mayday continues to tell who will soon be April that they don't have to fight and that she won't put her back in a stasis chamber. But the clone just can't let herself trust May. She's been too conditioned to not trust the other. We cut back to the real world where the Goblin God is, surprise, surprise, taking Mary Jane to the top of the Brooklyn Bridge. Good thing Kane figured this would probably happen and jumps on the Goblin God as they touch down. Kane, using his Mark of Kane to try and hold the Goblin down, causes the Goblin God to jerk and let go of Mary Jane, sending her falling off the bridge with baby Benji. As MJ holds her child and apologizes, we hear a tiny twip twip, or read a tiny twip twip. Turns out this is one certainly dramatic way to announce to your mom that you have superpowers. Benji can also make his own webbing, it turns out, and used it to save their lives. Very smart kid. Kane is stunned by this, which I think everybody was to a certain extent. by this turn of events, and Benji's rescue infuriates Norman. Why won't the Parkers just die? Before the goblin can take Kane down, Black Tarantula and Aranya come in, waiting to fight, or wailing into the fight, which makes Norman even angrier. Why won't people stay dead? Something he really should be asking himself, to be honest. He started it, kinda. So back in Peter's psyche, Norman grows impatient and asks for the symbiote May to kill the other May. Astral May touches Peter. There's a lot of Mays in this situation.
Yes, there
Astral
is.
May.
That's why I call it Mystery May and just called April by April.
It's fair. It's fair. Astral May touches Peter, whispering that with their combined strength, they will prevail. Which brings us to the memory of when May helped Normie see the light. Spider-Girl issue 27. I do believe I am right there.
You are right there. Yes, ma'am.
Aha. Numbers are not my strong suit, but I can remember my favorite issues. All right, so this is the scene where Mayday, without powers, is tied up and figures out that Normie was never really trying to kill her. He just wanted to fight and have his life ended as a goblin to kind of appease his grandfather and the legacy. Mayday helped him see that they didn't have to fight to end the war, a conversation that seems to have a big effect on the clone. As Norman sees this, he gets mad and states that Mayday is about to ruin a perfectly good hybrid as he goes to blast, who will soon be April. Mayday pushes her away from the blast, saving her from being hurt or worse, while Mayday herself gets hit with the debris. The clone charges into action, realizing May meant every word she spoke, something Norman can't quite say. Norman uses Peter to throw into the clone, causing them to crash as Norman tells her that she has too much Parker in her. So everyone is dying now. While Norman is distracted, May comes in to beat him down, starting with a punch to the face. Back in the real world, we see that the Goblin God has also started to break down now that he's starting to lose control in Peter's psyche. I believe it was it might have been Anya, but I think it was Brenda that says he looks like he's having a heart attack.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So things are getting real now that it's kind of coming to a head. So, in Peter's psyche, we see the scenery has changed to be right outside the Parker home, and as Norman is distracted by Mayday, we see that Peter has gained full consciousness, and he taps Norman on the shoulder to then also punch him in the face, telling him to get out of his head. And who will soon be April also gets a few well-deserved licks in for what he's done to her, as deserved. Norman starts screaming about his foiled plans because he seems to not realize he's not quick to give up when the chips are down either, even though he wants the Parkers to do that. But he blew it. May hits him one more time, telling him now that he is a sickness that feeds on itself, destroying everything that it touches. That Normie would have been consumed by hatred if he hadn't renounced him. And the only way to face this kind of disease, this kind of monster, is with courage, with faith, hope, honesty, and honor. Astral May gripes on how over the top the last line was, which are all right, Anne May, sure. But what about half the things she's been saying?
Yeah, I was thinking that.
Anyway,
the thing when I read it here, I was like, wait, what?
Anyway, and Astral May asks May and Peter to grab her hands. As that happens, she starts to age. Mayday can now see Astral May as Peter would see her. And in what's been pretty obvious by now, this is Mayday's guardian angel, her great Aunt May. Peter starts to tear up seeing her, asking her how this is even possible. And Aunt May tells them that her and Norman belong in the past, and since they needed a ghost to deal with Norman's spirit, she was there. Aunt May's light blasts into Norman's self, causing him to scream, not just in the psyche world, but also in the real world, as the Goblin God tries to fly away. Aunt May tells Peter before she goes that she's proud of him and the family he's raised with Mary Jane, and tells Mayday that even though she's got a mouth on her, she's a real Parker and will go far. I believe that this is April, but one of the girls
No, it's May. It's May asking, but it's like the panel is of May and April like together because I got it pulled up. You know.
Yeah, I believe I think it's April, but
yeah, it could have been the tail could have been on the wrong person.
Well, it's in the middle, so that's what I'm saying. Like it could be either or. And I mean it's the same voice, so it seems a little ambiguous to me, and maybe that's the way it was supposed to be. But Echo, as they break apart and send the three Parkers falling in the real world. Mayday grabs Peter and Symbiote May and webs a web shoot to help slow their fall. Phil calls her a show-off as he and Brenda had flown over to catch them. Peter finally comes to and sees May has made a web shoot and tells her that he could never get his to work right, and that maybe the student has finally become the master. May quips that he'll probably forget that the next time she breaks curfew. But he reminds her that her parents are always going to worry about her, no matter her skills or how old she gets. May's narrative returns to us to tell us that the gang sort of returned to normal lives, and that she thinks that Black Tarantula and Aranya are beating their brains out somewhere, which phrasing. It's not what May meant, but my mind went there. Because I'm a degenerate.
We're adults now, and that our minds would go there. But when we read this,
I was 18 when I read this. Don't play that.
Okay, that's fair.
Don't play that. But the Parker residence still has a few loose ends to clean up. May is pleading April's case to her parents about letting her stay, something she did promise when they were fighting each other. Mary Jane accepts the clone with mostly open arms. One is very broken. And she takes April up to get settled. Peter is holding Benji, quietly telling May that he's not sure about this, wanting it on record that he thinks this is a mistake. He doesn't trust her, and May knows this and understands Peter's frustration, but she hopes his fears are wrong. Mayday goes out for a walk, thinking about how they really have become somewhat of an amazing spider family now, in a way. But she still doesn't quite know if she's the original or the clone, and she's just going to have to be content with the fact that she was raised by two loving parents, and nothing can change the fact that her name is Mayday Parker, and she is the daughter of Spider-Man. Today is the first day of the rest of her life, and it is still the Spider-Girl world. The end for now. Before we go into reviews, I do want to make mention in this very last letter page for Amazing Spider-Girl, I see Aaron Sanders, Simeon, John Dillon, John Comer, David Branson, Matt Kaiser, Jeffrey Jeffers, Westhoff, John Lagarde, Tate Walters, Marcus Martin, Daniel Welsh, Michael Jung, Jim Collins, and our one and only Frogoat. We also get a next section that shows on April 15th, 2009, we will continue May's story either on what was then called Marvel Digital Comics, as we now know it as Marvel Unlimited, and in Amazing Spider-Man Family number 5. So things aren't quite over yet for our girls.
So John Corner, Matt, and Jeff all were on the second episode of the show, talking about those were all the moderators from the Spider-Girl message board. First of all, Venkman notes in the comments says that it's called the Brooklyn Bridge, and this issue is infamously called the George Washington Bridge in the dialogue of ASM 121, even though the art clearly depicts it's the Brooklyn Bridge, though some later reprints of ASM 121 correct the dialogue to the Brooklyn Bridge. He also says, "Get Gog Telly."
For what? What did I do? Our minds going there with Black Tarantula. Okay, whatever.
He's being. I think he's being facetious. But then you got Ron says April absolutely deserves compassion. Absolutely.
Yes.
So.
Oh yeah, no, totally. I'm like, there's no. Me saying that she is the clone is not me saying she does not deserve compassion, as much as I will speak uncompassionately about current Ben Reilly.
Well, so my thoughts on this issue are, well, okay. So spiritually speaking, especially in this story, April is very much like Ben Reilly in the original Clone Saga. Upon confused, not being sure of who they are, and much like how Ben Reilly survives the encounter and gets to assume a new life, April gets to do the same thing. So there's very much a symmetry there. As the clone expert, I there's a thematic beat of it. The Amazing Spider-Man family caused me to do a rim shot because
Freezing.
I understood that reference. Okay, to quote the immortal Captain America. So I remember going wop wop wop, rim shot.
I mean, I was liking Amazing Spider-Man Family. I did feel like when it was announced, hey, it's also going to be reprinted. I thought that was kind of a good thing because I was weary about digital only, which like now, we're doing digital only and they actually are seeming to get good numbers. But, it's been almost 14 years.
It took a very, very long time. And I think it was such a big risk. And I think that they also felt like they could Voltron, to use an old phrase from an old podcast, kind of Voltron the two groups together, right? You have your fan base of one title and you have another title, and there's some probably crossover, but they can increase the sales of the title they're trying to boost by bringing in this other fan base.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely what was happening. But I also think too, let's be fair here. It was a huge risk to put something on digital at this time, especially in 2009.
Oh yeah.
And I think it was more people were, at least fans, as I remember, were a little concerned by that. Like, how are they supposed to get it if they don't have access to this?
So, to give people context as to what the technology was at the time, the App Store with Apple had not debuted yet. It was debuting later on that year.
This was the code in the Diet Dr. Pepper. And it was so rudimentary that you could stack these. As I've discussed multiple times, that I was stacking these until they caught me.
Yeah.
So, but they were giving out free 30-day passes on Diet Dr. Pepper because I want to say it was Iron Man 2?
2009, yes. That was Iron Man 2.
Yeah. So it was Iron Man 2.
This is the third movie of the MCU.
Yes. But of course, it was quite before it was established like that. But it was Iron Man 2. So Iron Man 2 promos had it on there, and that's how I was doing it. And I believe that was even months after it actually had started.
Okay, I was wrong.
Uh-huh.
The App Store debuted the previous summer, but we're just not even a year into the App Store. And at this point, Android wasn't even a platform yet. The first Android.
No. Because I had one of the first ones. I had an HTC Aria, and I didn't get it until 2010.
Yeah, so I don't think that they even had official app yet. So comics.
I had a chocolate. I had a Verizon chocolate.
Yeah. So again, and that wasn't even running Android. That was running Symbian.
Yeah.
So again, Apple was the only one with an app store at the time. They didn't have a ton of apps. I think there was like a total of 100,000 apps, which seems like a lot, but when you quantify that there's like 100 million apps now,
it was harder back then to create your own app as well. Now it's a little bit easier.
Yes, and now, and look, Comixology didn't even exist yet. They wouldn't come out to 2010. So,
Comixology.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I say that with Pat there because poor.
No, I'm not meaning that mean. It's just Amazon shot it in the foot.
Amazon needlessly ruined a platform that was so good that that everybody else was using their code and their platform to, because it was so good.
Marvel wasn't.
Well, Marvel at one point was using the base code for their app until
Yes.
they got a contest with, and part of it too was I can do a whole episode of just talking about like comicsology, but anyway.
Well, we're also like just slipping more into the time frame that this came out and what was happening.
So yeah, that I just want to give people an understanding, especially the newer readers and the newer listeners that are young that don't maybe understand that this was an entirely different world than what we experience now. Like we kind of take it for granted now, but it was very much a brave new world.
Yeah, no. So I know for me, like to me, this is a great coda for Amazing. To kind of bring it back to the story for a second. Yeah. But I mean, we've all discussed how awesome this issue is, and for a lot of people, like this is the end of the series, and it's a great send off. Even though it really wasn't. It was just kind of a pause into a new medium, and we got the resolutions that mattered here. The fans got their Aunt May proxy to tell Peter what a great parent and husband he was, something that we were still sorely hurt by within the 616 at this time. And even today, as that is now a festering wound that has just gotten worse and possibly infected. Going by current ASM situation. So, this was a very sweet, even though it was bittersweet, end to this run. I will also equate this issue to me graduating high school, as that's kind of what I was doing at this time. And we've discussed this, that like I had been reading Spider-Girl since I was 8 years old, and when this issue ended, I was 18 and I was about to go away to college. I think acceptance letters had already come in by this point, and it felt like an end to me. Like just on a lot of things, not just this. It just kind of felt like I was feeling the end of stuff. And, obviously it wasn't. And I'm thankful for that as we get into more of this. But, I remember this issue kind of like helping brace me for the end of that time in my life as well. And it really cemented the feeling that I have of like, I grew up with Mayday. Because that's kind of how this felt. So
yes,
that's really like the main takeaways I have of this issue is how it feels like a next chapter. It feels like a send off of sorts. And, like you said, like we could talk all day long about the BS and the non BS and like all the different things that honestly were just ultimately ahead of their time. But the way like we as fans feel a little hurt by them using May as that, like I've talked about this, about how like that's why I was getting mad she was the first NFT. Because I'm like, why is it always got to be Mayday? Why do you always have to test everything new out with her? But it is because then that's when they go, oh, she's not a good character. It's like, really? Then why'd you start with her?
Yeah, why are you using a built-in fan base that even if they're not reading regular comics, they like I've talked with Jeff and John about it. They will go and actively seek out new Mayday stuff just to support the character.
Well, so do I. But like at a certain point, you kind of start to realize that that's being abused to a degree, and you're not getting, because the issue they'll do it because they know that that's a solid sale. But then if it doesn't do as well as they want it, it's always the character's fault, the fan base's fault. It's never the fact that it wasn't marketed appropriately.
If look, I've often said that if Mayday got a quarter of the marketing that Spider-Gwen had, Mayday probably would be a title up there along with Captain and Spider-Woman.
Well, no, and I agree that to a certain extent, but I also, in that context, I would also say though that without Spider-Girl, Spider-Gwen would have never gotten that marketing push because lessons were learned.
That and let's be real, Disney acquisition, the early phase,
and Disney needed a girl face, and for some reason Jessica didn't fit that bill, and it was hard to explain the daughter of Spider-Man. To
creating, creating IP at that, especially later on, say what we were talking about this, I think, Spidey Experience. It may have been in Books of X, Spidey Experience. But say what you will about Slott, but he was really good at creating IP.
Let's not talk about Silk.
Well,
so no, let's not. That's a can of worms. Here's my thing. I will give a compliment to Slott in that he knows his history, and he has a passion for trying to at least use it, regardless if it's the way we want it or not, regardless if it's right or not.
No,
he's not. He respects. He knows his source material, and that's something that is apparently rare nowadays.
Well, my point being with him is that he might create the idea, but generally speaking, other people will take the idea and vastly improve upon it, because when it comes to the execution of the idea, it's not necessarily good. When other people execute, like Thompson did with Silk, it kind of transformed the character into somebody that is now popular, and they're definitely not going to be based on
okay. Silk would have been popular if her origin story was not what it was.
Agreed. That's my point. Is that they do everything they can to distance themselves from those early appearances, and it doesn't feel like the same character at this point. But that's definitely an example of what it turned into in other people's.
Yeah, but the issue that I have there, and we're gonna move on from this because I'm just gonna get mad if you keep defending it, is the fact of look at her original story. Look at how the woman was written.
Oh yeah.
Do not defend that.
All right. So, okay, we're gonna move on to our feedback. We have some email, we're going to read the email written by Pinkman. He's in the comments as well. Do you want to read the email, or you want me to read it?
I'll read the comments. Excuse me. I'll read the podcast comments. You read the email.
Okay. So it says, hello, Kelly and Zach. You certainly kicked off the Spider-Girl's 25th anniversary year with fine style. Technical difficulties aside, your interview with Tom, Ron, and Pat was everything he could have hoped for and more. It was like getting to hang out with your favorite uncles for a couple of hours, and Ron is always, capital letters, a hoot. Now on to the comics themselves. By the time you read this, you will have finished your coverage of Amazing Spider-Girl. It won't be long until you get to the end of Spectacular and the end. But he's getting ahead of himself. What are some of your favorite moments from this run? What did you think was amazing about, amazing? And then he says, until Marvel issues a formal apology for that Spider-Girl Infinity comic from that so-called quote-unquote comics historian, make mine Mayday, sincerely Pinkman. He says, P.S. In Amazing Spider-Girl 24, when Mayday webs up the goons who are going to jump Davida, in the background there is a Colbert 08 poster on the side of a dumpster. Someone from the Spider-Girl team was a Stephen Colbert fan. That wasn't just. I think that was that was Marvel offices, because I think at that point he was about to make an appearance in the. He made an appearance on.
Possibly, but who doesn't love Stephen Colbert?
Yeah,
he's great,
especially for that Stephen Colbert. I like that one. I like that version better. But anyway,
where he was mocking conservatives.
Yes, I appreciated it.
Anyway, I guess my favorite moment from Amazing, honestly, I loved everything. There's not really there's not any kind of low moment, so it makes it harder for me to pick a high moment when everything is always so good. I would say I probably do think that the Carnage story,
I was about to say,
ultimately is the high. That's something that I think will go down in comic history as the highlight of this run, and that's just one. Everyone loves Carnage. It's also a big jumping off point. A lot of people got the graphic novel for this, and that was their only thing with Mayday. It was apparently in a lot of high schools, which seems weird. It's a lot of people's starting point with the character. And it's so solid and good and awesome and poor Benji, but it does kick off a lot of things that go into the second half. So
yeah. I would concur with the Carnage thing. To me, whenever a Hobgoblin, I think that first arc really set the tone for how Mayday should be, treated seriously, even to that point. Even though she'd had 100 issues, I think being able to definitively defeat Hobgoblin and overcome that mind block with Mindworm, I thought was pretty good. This brand new May arc, for me as a Clone fan, I always going to have a soft spot for it. So I just love it. I also, the covers are great. This was really, I felt like, probably the last 25 issues of Spider-Girl through this run is really when I feel like that Ron and Sal, Tom were really just knocking it out the park and hitting it on some cylinders. Not that the stuff before that was bad or anything, but like, it felt like they just kicked everything up a notch whenever we transitioned from Spider-Girl to Amazing Spider-Girl. And it's very rare you see a type of reset artistically the way that Ron did. And you could even see the evolution of it from the beginning of the run to this, the way Mayday is drawn and stuff. So just all really, really good stuff. Like you say, it's hard to pick. It's like picking your children, like you just can't pick one. But yeah,
some people wind up picking one. But no, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that is just so good because I'm sitting here like you're talking as I'm thinking, and I'm like, but I also I really like when she tells Jean what's what,
Yeah. Oh no, that in terms of the high school plots, Davida standing up to
it's seeing everybody from the high school like really kind of coming into their own. That's, I think, the thing about Amazing is it starts to feel like everyone's established. Everything's hitting a beat. Everything it almost lives and breathes, if that makes any sort of sense.
It's not, the only thing that I can compare it to really in terms of modern comics is really the latter stages of Ultimate with the high school experience and how,
to me, this is like, I know everybody loved Ultimate. I hated Ultimate. This was my Ultimate,
right.
So
as someone that read,
I would compare this to more classic Spider-Man.
Well, no, what I'm saying is and I was, kind of phrasing it within like the 2000s era. You just don't see this anymore. You don't see these types of runs on spin-off characters. You see that a little bit with Miles, but even like with Miles, it's been very, very clunky over the years, and they keep trying to change.
That's the case with any side character at this point.
And it just, again, like I referenced earlier, it's definitely the characters writing themselves.
Yeah,
and the characters that there's enough of a richness to the characterization that they start to write themselves, and you just don't see that in comics. So
it's almost as if world building and actually like thinking of full-fledged characters over plot devices seems to resonate.
Plot, not the plot, right?
Anyway.
Okay, so
but that is what I meant by lives and breathes. Like, it just feels like it kind of has a mind of its own in a way. But yeah, so going on.
I was going to set this up for you because I kind of feel like we should probably explain on these Apple Podcast reviews.
Probably.
So I, as I mentioned before we started recording the show, if you're an audio listener, go watch the YouTube episode, which should be linked in the post on Spray-Dude. But you can find it on the on the playlists, which have all been updated and are officially correct. But I was doing a bunch of stuff back end and double checking. Part of it was I've been trying to update the iTunes Apple Card image because it's slightly out of date because it has the old circle logo, and I've been trying to fix it, and me and Apple have been going around and around. So in doing that, I stumbled upon. I've also been going back and trying to get all the links to put in the description for all of our shows, and I found these reviews. So there's a couple that we have said publicly. I know that Vinkman said the one that he submitted.
I mean, I'm gonna read it again because I didn't get to read it last time. Because, like you said, it was the episode where I was trying to record in my car, which never again.
So I was going to read these reviews. There is one that we'll
address. Yeah. We'll. I want to skip it and I'll read it last so we can talk about it.
Yeah.
But on this, because you just pulled this from the place that says podnews.net, right? Where it kind of consolidates all of this.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. So it says out of 8 ratings, we have a 4.7 out of 5 stars. And the first one is from Kraz, and it's 5 stars from Apple Podcasts. It says, simply amazing. As a huge fan of Mayday, I love listening to Kelly and Zach while I work. So much knowledge, and every episode is very well prepared. 5 stars easy. I just wish I could leave more. Thank you. Then on Podcast Addict by Vinkman, he wrote, the short version, the best Spider-Girl podcast on the internet, period. And it says more, which I'm sure we read more of, but that's all that we have there. And then also on Apple Podcasts, and I've got to get real close because it's tiny, by Husky Pride. And I do believe we did read this once because I remember the name. But we're going to read it again.
Well, that is Ryan Reed.
Yeah, Ryan. Yeah. So as a longtime Spider-Girl fan, I have waited for something like this. Now, thanks to Kelly and Zach, Mayday is here in podcast form, full of such knowledge, humor, and MC2 love. This is a great podcast and can't wait for the next episode to drop. And then the third one is by, I'm just going to blow this up for me real fast because I cannot see Lando Lee. And this is kind of where we're going to discuss things. It's a bunch of question marks, and they only gave us 3 stars. That's okay. That's okay. And it just says, I've been listening to Clone Saga Chronicles, and I keep hearing Mayday Mondays mentioned, but I can't find it anywhere. I thought Gerard was hosting it. And so obviously we kind of discussed this in the first episode, but Make My Mayday is not Mayday Mondays. Obviously, Mayday Mondays was hosted on this channel with Gerard and Zach. But I had come up independently with Make My Mayday. And originally the plan was I was going to bring someone on who had never read the comics, and we were going to kind of read them and discuss it. But of course, no comic newbie wanted to join me or have time to read a comic that they weren't used to. So as things were happening on the first rebrand of us kind of restarting everything with Spidey Dude, Mayday Mondays just kind of fell through. Obviously, we have huge respect for Gerard. Hopefully I don't believe there's any hard feelings anymore. But basically, Mayday Mondays just wasn't going to happen. And that's where I brought up Make My Mayday. I already had the logo made and ready to go. I created the background that you guys see. I already had that made because I made it. So, I had already had stuff set up. I just didn't have a place to host, and I really didn't have, I couldn't find anybody to start up with me. And it just kind of came together because the original, when we first started about redoing all this stuff, I was going to be in the background, or I was going to help sit in and co-host and try to keep you guys straight and not talk about wrestling all the time. But I had already had my plan for how we were going to handle stuff like this.
Well, we were first, one of the things we were wanting to do was we wanted to have Kelly on and just talk about the fandom and see how it would work, as kind of our backdoor pilot. And then we kind of discussed what she just said, which was keeping us on task. And then whenever we kind of started talking about, well, maybe, maybe we should, there was a brief discussion between me and Gerard about doing Mayday Mondays and Make My Mayday. and then that kind of fell apart, and so we ended up just kind of letting bygones be bygones. Yes, it's still on Spotify. You can find the old episodes there. I don't know
Because for some reason Spotify won't remove it. It's great. No, like, and I enjoy it. Like, that's there is a reason. I think that this show has a different voice. I kind of, to me, like what we do here, especially because I think that this is helpful in people understanding some context. Not everybody has access to every issue anymore, and
exactly.
This I hope kind of helps it. Like Ryan said, bring it in podcast form, bring it into an audio format, which not a lot of comics get access to.
Well, and the perspective of it goes back to like what we were literally just discussing a minute ago about like Silk. You have a perspective that we just don't, that me and Gerard couldn't bring to the table, of you being a
wait. Okay, hold on. Why are you bringing up Silk on this? Because it's like, I'm sorry, you can't take the fact that somebody was literally held as a sex slave.
Yes.
What?
No, my point being is that you have a perspective of being a female comic person.
Okay.
Right? That I just don't have because I'm a dude. Right? And I
don't see how this applies to this situation that you are bringing up as an example for, because I feel like this is just bad, period.
Well, my point being is that because of your perspective and the way you do things, we couldn't have brought that with just me and Gerard. Does that make sense? That's what I'm trying to say.
For Spider-Girl, yes. And I agree with that. There were things where I listened to Mayday Mondays and I was like, I don't fully agree with that. Or wait, but it's not like I thought you guys, and this is my thing. It's like, it's not like I think y'all were wrong or anything. It was a different perspective. And like, that's why I bring what I bring. It's why I always like make a point to mention, like, I understand that, like, I've grown up with the character. And I think you can kind of see that as I talk about stuff, because I'm still pulling from when I first read it, what age I was, how I understood it then, how I re-understand it now, and try to bring that perspective in. Because I also get, like, how many times have I, like, talked to our, friends on Reddit, or because we even had recently on Reddit where somebody called, like, the girl who fell from Earth and everything, the Howard Kavanaugh Act. And I had to explain to them how, hey, maybe don't call something by the abuser's name, because that's not good. And they totally didn't understand what I meant. And so, those are the kinds of discussions that, like, everybody's going to read it from a different side and understand it in a different way. And hopefully, like, that's why I always try to make sure we have everything as broken down as possible and give as much context as possible, so that way people understand more.
Yeah, exactly. I also had the long version of what Penguin wrote.
No, okay. If you want to reread it, since we're going down memory lane.
He said the long version, if you're looking to know more about Mayday Parker, aka Spider-Girl, then do yourself a favor and listen to Kelly McDaniel and Zach Joyner as they take you on a journey through the history of the MC2 universe. The reviews are honest, objective, and a ton of fun. Each episode feels like you're hearing a couple of good friends talking about the characters and stories that they love. Highly recommend. 5 stars. That was the rest of Pinkman's review. So I will try to make sure that we don't, go a year between discussing that, but it's been a long time since we've talked about the whole Mayday Mondays, and
well, I mean, we saw that comment. Not to mention, we had also seen it on a few recent Reddit posts where people were looking for Mayday Mondays and couldn't find it, and then found us. Hopefully, they Make My Mayday. I certainly enjoy it. I'm very proud of how far we have gotten through, because we definitely have surpassed Mayday Mondays.
We surpassed
in that regard.
Because we kind of split the first volume into like season 1, season 2, year 1 and year 2, and like we surpassed that, a long time ago. And Mayday Mondays was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it, but this is a longer form podcast, first of all, and second of all, I just feel like us doing it live and being able to comment, and we have Ron, jumping into it, it's just an entirely different vibe.
Oh yeah.
And Mayday,
And
Mayday Mondays.
I enjoy Run Friends jumping in and correcting me.
Yeah, me too. He
Yeah.
corrects me too. I'm not saying I enjoy him correcting you. I enjoy him correcting both of us.
I mean, that's fine.
But no, Mayday Mondays is very much of its time, and a time capsule to that past of spy-do.com. But this is definitely the present and the future, and so that's my last bit, and I am thankful that we have gotten this far. I mean, we're literally almost done with what a lot of people consider the Spider-Girl's run. I mean, we're in the now digital age.
We're going to be in the digital age and start slowly inching towards what we have jokingly called the dark times, which is Spider-Verse.
Exactly.
But so, and two, it's like we keep like thinking about like, okay, what's our end game? We're now like in our third act, and we keep getting more stuff.
Exactly, and so
it's not funny. Over.
Here's the crazy thing about all of the shows on the Spidey Network. When we started Clone Saga Chronicles, we were begging for omnibuses and trades. We ended up getting those. We ended up getting new material shortly after we started. We started Spectacular Radio. There was not right when we were developing it. They it was around the time of Amazing Spider-Man 2, and so they released the Blu-ray. Mm-hmm. So you finally get season 2 on a physical disc. When we started, after we started this show, we got the complete collection trades. Whenever
I'm getting nervous about that next volume. I don't think it's happening anymore.
I think somebody commented on
someone on Reddit pulled something that's not necessarily true and tried to run with it as the truth, which is why I've tried to keep it quiet. But it's also, it's not hard seeing it, knowing that they're trying to switch away from the complete collections to begin with, and we're dealing with a paper shortage, and now we're also dealing with a primer shortage on some printers. It's going to be tough.
Somebody knows what's going on with the printing, stuff like that, or
it does sound like someone knows something about printing, huh?
As I do my doctorate.
Huh. So yeah. But anyway, there's some stuff going on, so I wouldn't be shocked if we do not get volume 4. But right now I'm saying have faith, and I'm gonna do those sober.
Are y'all gonna need a lot of alcohol when we get to Spider-Verse and Web Warriors? Here's the thing.
Neil will. Neil will need it. I prefer to do my stuff sober. Because
there is a level of glee that can be had when you read something.
I'm not. I'll be honest. I'm not going at. I tell you guys right now, I'm not going to go at it with the intention of hate reading. The thing is, though, I'm going to try to do it the way I do these. I'm going to go at it with the intention of taking it seriously, trying my best to understand it, trying my best to make it fit. And that's always going to be the issue, but we will discuss it at that time. But
we're going to give it the fair shake that both of us feel like it deserves. We deserve to give it a fair shake, because if we sit there and just go with our inherent bias, then to me that's not fair.
It's not fair, and it's also to it's kind of like, I think there's been plenty of times that we've done stuff where I've gone, oh, I missed that, or I remember taking it one way here, but now that I'm a little bit older and like I'm seeing it a little bit more objectively, I understand it this way, and that's how I want to approach these. I want to give them the best shot possible, even though, yes, am I going to like lose it over the stupid sandwiches and Web Warriors? Yes, because there is no justifying that. But we'll talk about it when we get there.
Right, and if you go back and listen to like the Mayday Mondays episodes of Spider-Verse and stuff, there's a lot of anger, resentment, and passion that.
But think about at what time y'all were reading that versus now.
Exactly. And so that I don't think we'll have the same level of vitriol because we know where it ends, partly, and two, we're a lot older. You know, you and I are a lot older and wiser than we were at that point in time too. So I think we can bring it a sense of objectivity to those stories that I don't think I would have been able. I know I didn't do back then, and so yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how my opinions may have changed.
Like it's kind of the situation where like I still see where everybody wants an ongoing for Spider-Girl, and I'm kind of at the point of saying it's okay if she, like, I've made peace with if that never happens again, because that means she's safe. And I think that's, you know, there's that different mindset to it, because yeah, back then that's all I wanted. That's why I was so excited about Spider-Verse. And then what happened, and that's okay. It's not the best, but
Ben Reilly.
Yeah.
I was the guy in 2011 asking Steve Wacker at San Diego Comic-Con, can they bring back Ben Reilly? And if I could go back and talk to him and be like, hey, you don't know of which you have asked.
Well, it's that be careful of what you wish for, and
100%.
That's kind of the situation at hand. Is that like back when we were first angry and we were flying off the handle, we weren't aware that what we were asking could go that direction.
100%. And so yeah, I think we've thoroughly discussed.
I think so. I think and I think we've kind of discussed how, like, look, we're going to be the same old. There's not going to be a hate read. We're not going to like fly off the rails on any of that.
We also aren't reviewing the issues. We are chronicling the issues, and I think that is the difference between the two. Whereas with Mayday Mondays,
yeah, like, I mean, we'll give our reviews, but like when we're doing breakdowns, like, yeah, I might give a clip here and there because I tend to do that. But we're definitely going to at least try to be as respectful as we possibly can, and give everything a fair shot. And you know, it'll still be us. It's just, yeah, it will be different writers, and we might not be as kind as we are to the top of the top, which are Tom, Ron, and Pat and Sal and everybody. So we'll see. But like we'll be as fair and respectful as we possibly can be. Speaking of next episode, the digital era. So I did not set up what our next episode is going to be. I didn't quite look at the issues we're going to go over next. I do believe that I didn't write it in a Spider-Man family. However, I do believe that I wrote it in as the digital comic spectacular. Okay. So we'll probably go over issues 1 through 4 of the start. Right. Yeah, I'm going to double check that though, make sure there's nothing in between.
I think who was Gwen Riley arc.
Yeah, it's the Gwen Riley arc. Give me 1 second. I'm going to check my reading order because this is how I filled these out. And this is something that I presented this to Zach back like with way before the Mayday, like Mondays, make my Mayday debacle. I had all of this.
I kid you guys not. She had this spreadsheet that she was like, hey, this is kind of like what I think, you know, if I did do this Mayday show with you, this is kind of what I think is like kind of a blueprint. Whereas with me and Gerard, we were kind of doing the same thing, but we were kind of just doing the Excel spreadsheet as we went, not like planning it out, you know, except for maybe like 2 or 3 episodes out. And then there, you know, like I think Gerard had done the first 100 issues of Spider-Girl, and had a kind of a semi-plan with that, because like when we were going to get to like Season of the Serpent and Marked for Death, we were going to do those as one episode, kind of like what we did with A-Next. But it just, yeah. So, but like Kelly's was even more detailed than that. So we've been using that.
I'm kind special.
It has been our astral Aunt May for the entirety of this show. But while she's looking
Yeah.
that up, I do want to point out to everybody links down in the description. Our Facebook, our Twitter, our emails, the voicemail, everything is down in the description. Our Discord link is down in the description. So if you haven't joined our Discord, join the Discord. It
Yeah.
is absolutely free, and we get to you get to have some behind the scenes stuff. You know, we like I posted a picture of me and Neil doing Books of X the other day. And
Yes. Actually, I have a correction to make on those next issues. We're not going to start with Spectacular Spider-Girl. We're actually going to start with the little minis that are in Spider-Man Family 1 through 4, which I believe are Mr. and Mrs. Spider-Man.
Okay. Yes.
We're going to get some backstory in between before we start off.
It's still.
I've got to double check. I'm going to double check because for some reason I didn't write in what was what, and I should have on those anthologies.
Yeah. So if you subscribe, what we're covering is going to be in the description, and in the title. You'll also notice I made a slight change to the way I did the title of this episode. It's basically Amazing Spider-Girl 28 through 30 review, Make My Mayday episode 44. The reason I did it that way is because is for algorithmic reasons. So if you see like subtle changes like that, it's because I'm trying to get more people to watch the show.
Yeah, we're trying to figure something out. Also, too, just because I don't know if you were able to fix everything else prior, since the title card did say issue 31, I think that's how we should end today's episode. We did joke about it earlier, but let's create this mythical, amazing Spider-Girl issue 31, Zach.
So, we don't see Jean after he gets humiliated.
He went on a date with Simone, and Simone's dad's not at home.
So yeah, so okay. The issue is going to deal with like the aftershocks of like Simone getting her. In my headcanon, Simone's dad gets arrested because of all the Norman shenanigans, and that and like it becomes a whole thing with like Simone, like she's a stuck up rich girl,
Oh, and then Jean doesn't want anything to do with her.
Yes.
Oh no.
Your dad helped a super villain, and then you got Flash going, because Flash was the card carrying member of the Spidey fan club, and he's probably sitting there going, "Yeah, he helped the Green Goblin. Green Goblin's dumb." And he's like, "Yeah, Dad, Green Goblin's dumb." It's just my brain.
Yeah.
I could see him wanting to. I see idol worship with Eugene and Flash. I do like it. I feel like that, like he would, do whatever his dad.
Well, I mean, the Hardy kids have serious parental issues.
Yeah.
But they need family therapy so bad.
Yeah. Let's see. Maybe issue 31 is where DarkDevil, tells May.
Oh, at dinner? Just
at
random
dinner. Yeah, they're having dinner one night.
That's what happened. Yeah.
DarkDevil is pulling a cane and he's watching from the shadows, and Mayday and Peter's and April's spider senses are going off, and they're like, "Who's out there watching from the shadows?"
April ruins everything because she doesn't know any better.
April busts out like symbiote style and starts attacking, and then Kane shows up. He's like, "You didn't do watching in the shadows right," because that's how Kane. Yeah. That's Kane's MO. Okay, he always watches from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I figured that they play Monopoly and like on family game night, and then everybody is mad at each other, and that's why Peter is like 10 times worse at the start of Spectacular about April, and April starts getting snippy with him because
exactly, and that way
Monopoly like causes wars.
Listen, Monopoly, I did not know that you're supposed to auction off the things. I have played 6-hour games of Monopoly without the auction element, and it goes a lot faster when you start doing the
auctions. Yeah. Also, if you are the banker, you can just control things until your brother says that you are cheating him out of money, which you're not doing, and things get flipped over. And
there's Monopoly. Here's the thing. Monopoly is similar to Jesus in the temple, where he starts throwing, turning tables and using whips to chase people out of the temple. Monopoly is the modern day equivalent of family chasing a. It's one of those things.
It's a bonding moment.
Listen, you have not.
You learn your weaknesses as a family.
Yes, it is a barometer of familial bonds. How close are you as a family? Play Monopoly and find out.
Okay, but who wins the Monopoly game? Benji? The baby. The baby wins Monopoly.
Yeah, because while everybody's like arguing and fighting, he's like crawling across the table and grabbing all the money.
Yes.
Well, I mean, yeah, Benji. Now, if it's not Benji, I think does Kane come in and join?
Yeah. At this point, they come in. They have to come in because it's awkward not to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. I can see Kane. I can see Kane and Peter like getting into a giant argument, and then like Kane looking at Peter and going, "You have not told your daughter about all the shenanigans," and MJ going, "Oh, we're trying to shield her from all the shenanigans, so we're not going to talk about it." And then
and see, this is how she finds out. That's how we figured this out. This is how she finds out because the adults start fighting.
See,
over Monopoly.
Ron and Tom were like, "There's no story. We just created a story.
Yeah,
come on. There's story. There's hijinks. There's no soup. It would be
you know what?
Villains.
That's what we should ask people. Give us your reviews. Give us your thoughts and your fan fiction stories on how DarkDevil tells the Parker family that he's Riley's kid.
We'll read the fan fiction on Patreon.
I mean we'll read in the reviews at the end of each episode. Let's get cringy and weird here.
Yeah, let's get weird. So if you want to leave us emails, you can always leave us emails at makemymayday@gmail.com or SpideyDudeRadioNetwork@gmail.com. So I think we'll take some last comments. If you guys want to leave us a comment down below, let us know. So give us those likes, those subscribes. We have gained, I think, 15 subscribers in the last month.
Oh, so we were nice.
25. I'm sorry, it's been 25 because we were plateaued at like 150, and now we're at $175. Had some people with some bigger channels with a couple of thousand subscribers, including Spider-Man Crawlspace.
We'll have to tell Peter that I'm allowed to post about big Make Ben Mayday episodes in the Crawlspace Discord, and then. So the reason why we decided to read the 3-star one is because we might as well tease Chi-Town, but Chi-Town was like, I thought you just replaced Gerard, and I was like, no, that replacement is not and that's it. So that's the thing that I think irks me the most, and it's just because it feels disrespectful to Gerard, and also feels a little disrespectful to me. None of us replaced each other. This is a separate show.
We just moved. We were going to do Mayday Mondays, a revamped version of Mayday Mondays. It didn't happen, and then we moved forward. It's not replacing; it's just moving forward. It's like because it's like I'm the one that plotted everything here. Zach's along for the ride. Listen.
And he hosts it, and he does host it, and he does a great job at editing things and doing stuff behind the scenes. But which is why it's like we're co-hosts. But in fairness, I didn't replace somebody. Here's always been, and you know this, Kelly. Mm-hmm.
I say this to Greg. I've said this to Gerard. I've said this to Chris. I've said this to Neil. If you are leading a show, whether I am co-hosting or not, it is still your show. I am providing the vehicle as the executive producer, aka through Spidey-Dude.com. I am providing the vehicle to distribute the show. I am a co-host, a producer, and a distributor. But you guys are the hosts, and you have ownership of the show. That's how this works. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like,
to me,
if Kelly wanted to take the show and go to another network, she could take all these episodes.
We have discussed that. Although I like it here. So,
and it's the same thing with Greg, and I've said the same thing to Greg, and I've said the same thing to Chris. I mean, Chris brought his stuff. He
here,
hasn't done
yeah.
new episodes. He brought his stuff from the Dorkening Network to the Spidey Dude Network, and we're reposting those episodes. Now he's almost to the point. I think he's got like 30 episodes that he did. So once he gets to that point, then we'll start doing live streams again with that. So, Ron says, "Thanks for your insights and for your support, Kelly and Zach. It's been a terrific run. It is, and it's not over. It's just we're just done with this era.
More. Yeah, we're done. We're done with the amazing era. Onto the, as I call it, the clone era, and then we'll slowly go into the dark times.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine. It'll be fun. We should stop calling it the dark era. I feel like that's what's giving us we're not going to treat it fairly.
Yeah, we probably should. As we're talking about this out loud, and we're not even planning on
we're really not. We're really not. It's just it's better than me calling it the Jason Todd era, because that's what I want to call Spider-Verse. But
understood that reference.
Anyway.
But no, it really it's the post founder era is markedly different than the era of which we're in right now, and
it also is going to take a lot more background on our end because of the new supporting characters.
There is so much. Her and I will have. I mean, we did for the interview. Her and I did 2 different planning sessions together, right? Where we were kind of going through and sorting out what we wanted to say with the interview. We're gonna have to do the similar things with.
We're gonna have to employ Neil a lot more.
Yeah, Neil will be there, because frankly, too, as we continue to grow as a channel and we continue to get new subscribers, and we're going to have new people that are jumping on and watching us live, and we're going to hopefully have more comments, knock on wood, all of this. We're going to need some moderation of comments and stuff like that, because not everything's going to be able to be put up on screen.
Yes, but I will say I do think, for the most part, I think we'll be all right. Because, as we stated, the anger has simmered.
Oh, 100%. Look, life's too short to be angry at bad comics.
You tell that to Twitter about yesterday's ASM issue.
I
even though, and I stated this earlier, and I'm going to state it again before we leave, just because I don't understand how anybody didn't see it. Literally, that line that is being taken out of context is a direct, to me, it's so clearly a direct reference to a Taylor Swift song. And I will say that it could be Zeb Wells calling the Spider-Man fans as rabid as Swifties, which you can take as a compliment or not.
This is a guy that wrote.
But I will say is probably accurate.
100%.
And I'm sure he'll lean into me saying that too.
Well,
even if it's right or wrong.
Is I saw Mark Alford's review.
Which Mark was very good about it. I appreciate it. And it was funny because there were background conversations about hey, I respect your opinion, Mark, but I'm done. I'm over it. And I'm to me, it's everyone harped on one line and didn't realize the context of the entire page.
Well, not only that, this is a 2-issue rando arc, not written by the writer of the ongoing run. I don't necessarily, not that I don't take it as canon, but I don't take it as seriously. So it was Joe Kelly that wrote the issue.
Oh, okay. I like Joe Kelly. That's probably it. But a lot of people don't like it. A lot of people don't like his writing. I enjoy his writing. I just think he always it. You have to kind of, again, it's context. You have to understand the context. And
I went back and just reread his Black Cat arc on Brand New Day yesterday. I was like, is that as bad as I remember, or was it? Am I older and wiser now? And I'm like, it's not great. It's really well drawn. because you had Mike McCone on art.
Yeah.
But and I there's still annoyances that I have with it, but like it's not as bad as I remember. And Kelly and Wells for me both have been very hot and cold.
I see, and I like Zeb Wells' writing too. This is I don't have this vitriol that people seem to have for these writers on ASM right now. The story itself is bad, but like look at how it's always been a correction for a bad story here and a bad and I'm not meaning it like I need better words than just calling it bad, but sometimes that's the only way that I can write. Like it didn't fit, and then trying to correct it and trying to make it work in the way that it supposedly needs to work has kind of this has been a thing that has been happening since Brand New Day. It just has, regardless of the talent in the writing team, regardless of what's going on. That seriously is the time things broke, and there's a way of fixing it clearly, but that fix can't happen. And so we're just kind of content. It's almost kind of like I said, it's the wound that has been festering and now is possibly infected. Like it's just
well,
things have to change, and I think we're getting to the point where the fans, because like I said, this is and why I thought Zeb Wells wrote it was because that online, and again, online's just taking that one panel out of context.
Well, it's just like them.
One line out of context.
Yeah.
And they're threatening Zeb Wells, who didn't write the issue. And so at first I was like, wait, okay, am I like thinking maybe Joe Kelly wrote it yesterday? And of course, like I just ran through it, just to run through it because I was like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Again, context is key. The context does not fit the anger. And it is what it is. But again, all I have to mention is go listen to Call It What You Want by Taylor Swift off her Reputation album from 2017 and tell me that line is not a direct reference to that line. Is it still weird and awkward? Yes. It's an awkward line. Don't call your lover your sibling. It's gross. But,
But also, Peter, look.
He was lying. He was also lying to her.
Yeah, he's also lying to
her. Like, he didn't want to admit it.
Again, I will definitely be talking about this next week on
Yes. Sorry. It's a fresh thing that happened as we're talking, and I just really wanted to mention that, like, why is everybody getting so angry at a Taylor Swift lyric?
Well, also, like, again, I'll go into a long look. I got legitimately mad as a Clone Saga fan about Dark Web and about Ben Reilly, and I think I tried to explain myself as why I was frustrated.
Well, I stated I felt like the thing that killed me the most was at the announcement of Dark Web. So way back at the end of Beyond.
Yeah.
The antagonistic editor's letter made me angry. And it was antagonistic. And then that continued into Dark Web. The issue at hand is not the fact that the story is clunky. Because the story is clunky and I don't like it. And it's kind of turned a lot of people off of the story. Pretty much everyone no longer cares about what Peter did in the time jump. But the thing that is sticking with people is how they feel disrespected. And a lot of it has to do in the editorial letter. If you're reading it, you feel like you are not cared for. And is that necessarily the tone that Nick Lowe means to bring? I don't know. And that's why it's like I'm trying my best to be as respectful of him as possible. But it does come off very disrespectful of fans. And you can't do that and then expect people to stick with you.
There will be because I'm actually also working on some video essays about Ben, um, and why I just feel um, the way I feel about it. Just try to kind of distill it down into a 10-minute video.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, right now what we're seeing is a very negative vibe with the fan base. And to bring it back to Spider-Girl, you didn't have that with the Spider-Girl.
No, you didn't. But also, you didn't have, like I said, you didn't have an editorial letter that was like, suck it.
Yeah, and when you had people like Joe Quesada and Steve Wacker and Tom Brennan and Molly Laser, everybody on the editorial staff speaking glowingly and positive about the individuals that were writing and drawing the books, that vibe can carry over. And if you create an air of negativity like he did with the end of Beyond and even the end of, really, let's be honest, the end of Spencer's run too, the way that letters page kind of
the one where Nick Lowe seemingly called out Chi-Town.
Which time? Because he's only called them out like 15 times.
That's also very fair. And see, and that was my thing, is that like it could be perceived jokey at first, and then as it keeps going, it's like, you seem to have a vendetta against this one random person.
It's almost, it reminds me of like flower jokes from back in the day, and how like sometimes they're funny, but like when you beat a joke into the ground and it comes across as a dead horse, it may not be intended as a dead horse.
At some point you stop thinking it's a joke and you start wondering what's wrong.
You start taking it personal. Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't even say like it's a personal situation. It was just, it's like, okay, this seems to actually like be a point of contention. Like, what's up? Let's have a chat.
Yeah.
But and that's my thing on it. That's one reason why I stopped reading the editorial pages. Which has been a huge help, stress-wise, reading ASM. But just seeing how the fandom has kind of gone insane is crazy to me.
Spider-Man Twitter has always been a knife fight. However,
well, I'm aware. I'm
however,
I'm a female in the fandom. I'm very aware.
Dude, and I see how some of the guys talk to you, and I just want to round them up.
I think I handle myself all right.
Oh, I know. Like here's the thing. I have no doubt that Kelly McDaniel can verbally dress down a D-bag on the internet. I've seen it. I've witnessed it. I've been the Michael Jackson gif with popcorn, watching it. But still doesn't mean that I don't like my friend being attacked. So
no, and I don't like any of my friends being attacked. I also just don't like it when people seem to get angry over things that they're not fully understanding.
Well, and then again, like even the first issue of this 2-issue arc, the whole blurb on the opening page. Until I see it in the issue, I don't count it as canon. It's in the letters recap page. Like no, like recap pages half-ass count in my head canon. I'm sorry, they just. But anyway, we will.
To go back, next episode we want to do March 9th.
Yeah, so March 9th.
All right. We will have a fun, easy breezy episode of all the little MC2 related minis that are in Amazing Spider-Man Family 1 through 4.
Yep.
Which should mostly be Mr. and Mrs. Spider-Man. Might be some little bingies.
Might be a little bingies. Are we covering? Is that also when we're covering the Aranya Spider-Girl?
We can also add in that story as well as the prose story.
Yeah.
I'm also down with that. So this will be a big little miscellaneous prequel to Spectacular.
Yeah. So what we will do is it will be in the description. We post it on the social medias. We'll talk about what we're covering. But just know March 9th, I will. Everything will be in the description. I'm going to start now that that StreamYard and Facebook are finally talking nice with each other. We're going to start like layering everything out on the YouTube and Facebook, so that way, you guys know kind of the schedule of what we're planning. Like next week, new episode of SDE where we're covering the most recent 3 issues. I don't remember if ASM comes out next week or not, but
not sure.
It's either the next following week, and if it's the following week, then we'll just do. Yeah.
But yeah,
Swiney Girl,
I do believe was in Spider. It is included somewhere in this MC2 reading list. I believe it is in Spider-Man Family, so it might be one of the stories. Like I said, any MC2 related story that is within Spider-Man Family, we will cover.
Yeah, because there was Spider-Man Family and Amazing Spider-Man Family, and they were 2 different titles. Spider-Man Family,
so I've got so Amazing Spider-Man Family 1 through 4 is here. Then Spectacular, where is it? Because I know I had it somewhere.
Yeah, so Kelly's.
Spider-Man Family is it towards the end. It's where I originally put the dance.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, we'll bring it up because there's not enough.
Kelly and I will brainstorm.
We'll figure it out. Basically,
Mr. and Mrs. Spider-Man is only like six pages story, so it's not like they're 22-page stories.
3 or 4. I think it was 4 stories.
Yeah.
So no, I mean we'll figure it out. It's just gonna kind of be easy breezy miscellaneous day leading up to Spectacular.
Yep. So stay tuned. Everything will be in the description below. If you have not already, give us a like, a share, and a subscribe. Let us know how we're doing. If you're listening to the audio program, be sure to leave us that 5-star review. We'll read it on a future episode. If you want to leave a voicemail, you can always leave a voicemail at our voicemail line, 818-925-6631. We will play the voicemail on a future episode. You can follow us on Twitter at SpideyDude Radio and at Mayday. Our Facebook page is at SpideyDude Network. Instagram is SpideyDude Network and K McDaniel 28 or K Mac 28. Sorry.
No, it's K McDaniel. It's not K Mac. I don't know where you're getting K Mac. Oh, you're getting that from Discord.
That's why. Okay, that's right. Yeah, K McDaniel 28. Find it on Instagram. You can also give us that like, share, and subscribe on Twitter. If you're listening to Audio Edition, thank you guys for your support. And before we get out of here, we also got to thank our patrons at patreon.com/Spidey Network. Bakeman, Scott, Greg, Keegar, Master Drammond, Phoenician, Kale, Georgia, Jessica, Catherine, Cindy, Ashley Farquhar, Laura, and Ed Reynolds. Thank you guys for your support over on patreon.com/SpideyDude Network. Your support has been invaluable and immeasurable, and I cannot thank you guys enough. And we're continuing to grow, and more to come very, very soon. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to this episode of Make My Mayday. We'll see you next time here on the Spidey Dude Radio Network.